Taking a look at number 11, we're given a coordinate plane with two functions graphed. My function f of x and my function g of x. Letter A tells us to write these equations in slope-intercept form for both f of x and g of x. Recall that slope-intercept form is our y equals mx plus b, which means in both equations we are going to need to find our slope and our y-intercept. Let's take a look at f of x first. Based on my graph, I know that my line f of x lies along my y-axis at my point 0, 0, which means my y-intercept or my b value is 0. In order to find my slope, I'm going to take 2 points on my line, and I know slope is visually rise over run. So from one point to the other, I'm going to rise up 1 and run to the left 1, 2, 3, which is my negative direction 3. So my slope of f of x is negative 1/3. With this information, I can write my equation f of x equals my slope, which was negative 1/3, times x plus my y-intercept, my b value of 0. So f of x equals negative 1/3 x plus 0. Let's write an equation for g of x in the same way. G of x, I'm going to need both a slope and a y-intercept. Let's take a look at my y-intercept. For g of x, I see that my y-intercept, where my graph crosses the y-axis, is my point 0. And we went down 1, 2, 3. I call this ordered pair 0, negative 3. Where my y value, or my y-intercept, my b value, in this case, is negative 3. But I still have to find my slope. Using the same technique we use to solve for our slope in f of x, I know that my slope of g of x can be found using rise over run. So I'm going to pick another 2 points on my g of x line. From one point, I go up 1 unit. That's a rise of 1 unit. And I go left, which is my negative direction, 1, 2, 3. So I go left, 3. So I can tell my slope of g of x is a negative 1/3. So let's use these two pieces of information that we found for g of x to write our equation. We know that g of x equals my slope. We found my slope of g of x to be a negative 1/3. And we found that our b value was a negative 3. So I can either write this as plus a negative 3, or if you want to simplify this, we would say g of x equals a negative 1/3 x minus 3. Now that we have our two equations, part B wants us to describe the parameter that is left unchanged. This is just asking, based on your equations in slope intercept form, where y equals mx plus b, what part, what piece, what parameter did not change? Let's take a look. In our equations, we have both our slope and our y-intercepts. So if we look at our slopes, we can look straight down. Negative 1/3 and negative 1/3 are exactly the same. So the slope did not change. But if we look at our y-intercepts in both of our equations, one of them is a 0 and one of them is negative 3. So we can say the y-intercept changed. So it says describe the parameter that is left unchanged. Our answer here would be the slope did not change. Instead, we saw that the y-intercept changed.